Good morning and welcome back to the Senior Hour. I'm Barbara Cochran with my co-host,
Dr. Jean Dorio.
There we are. You got to do it, didn't you? On your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS. And we're speaking now with Randall Kaiden, who is an elder law attorney. And is it your philosophy or what? Your life, your legacy, your way.
That's right. We're concerned about doing planning for seniors in the way that they want it rather than them being told what to do. And that is what happens a lot in the system if you don't do advanced planning.
Interesting. Your life, your legacy, your way.
That's W-A-Y, not W-H-E-Y.
No, that's right. Your way, W-A-Y. That's very interesting. That's quite a philosophy, is it?
Yeah, and it's what we're doing is a lot different than other elder care law firms, I should say, because most of the time elder care attorneys are concerned about saving assets, first of all for seniors and then later on for their family. And of course, we're concerned with that as well, but we're looking at the full breadth of issues that seniors face, and it starts, of course, with their health care. If you don't have your health, you don't have anything. And if your health starts to digress, that turns into a housing issue. And then from there, once you're in a housing issue, you're in a financial issue. And once you're in the financial issue, you're in the legal issues. So what we like to do is start at the beginning, and if our clients come in and they're doing pre-planning and they're healthy, we're focused on that from A to Z. Now, right now, the way that the system is built is, people will go see their doctor, and doctors, of course, are going to give them great medical advice. But if they ask their doctor, where do you think I should live, or how am I going to pay for my care as I age, the doctor's going to look at them with a big question mark on their face, going, "That's not my job. That's not something that I handle." And really, there is nobody out there quarterbacking all the different aspects of what seniors need to live a long, happy, healthy life. And so that's what life care planning is about, and that's what we provide. And so it's our clients love it. It's a great service.
But let's start from the beginning. You mentioned healthcare, and there are our listeners. It's a senior hour, so our listeners, they have medical care. They've reached 65, but many of them don't even understand the difference between Medicare and Medi-Cal.
Yeah, it's really confusing. I don't know why Congress enacted all these names that sound so similar. Could you be talking about Medicare, Medicaid, Medi-Cal, which is Medi-Cal is the California version of Medicaid, and they all sound so similar. And when you put meta in front of a word, it makes people think about medicine and that they're being taken care of. But that is completely not true in the long-term care context. While you could have Social Security and Medicare, and you have great health care coverage, once you have a debilitating event, or if you, for whatever reason, need to go into an elevated level of care, there is nobody out there that is going to help you to do that, save the Medicaid or Medi-Cal system in California for skilled nursing care or for care at home. And in between, we also have the Veterans Aid and Attendance pension benefit that we can get if we're lucky enough that we have a veteran who served during a time of war, and most veterans are not even aware that this benefit is out there for them to help them pay for their long-term care.
Can their spouses, though, if they've been married, let's say they served in Korea and their husband served and he passed away, though, does the wife get those benefits too?
Yeah, so there's a widow benefit this year. It's $1,149 per month. And again, we have a lot of widows out there who have no idea that they have this, what I like to call it the second Social Security. But it's only can be used for long-term care or for activities of daily living. So it's such a great thing to be able to tap into that resource if let's say in this case, their husband was in the military during a time of war. Their spouse later on can tap into that aid and attendance pension benefit. There's a lot of hoops to jump through, and that's what we help our clients do in order to acquire it. But it's a wonderful benefit when people actually receive it.
So government, we all know, throws up the hoops. Yeah. So how many, I know there are listeners
hoops
right now, their ears have shot up when they know they can get $1,149, that is a benefit to them because they have served or their spouse has served. They're listening right now. Yeah. But of course, they're thinking to themselves, do I have to have my right arm amputated to be able to get that kind of benefit?
Absolutely not. What you are referring to as a compensation claim. The Veterans Administration is enormous. It's the biggest healthcare provider in the whole world. And there's 4 different departments in the VA. One of them is the where you file compensation claims and your pension claims, but they're completely different. When we're talking about a pension, you don't need to have been injured during a time of war. You don't need to have an injury per se. You just need to have expenses, what we call unreimbursed medical expenses that exceed your income. And if you fall into that category and you need help with 2 out of the 6 activities of daily living, and we get a doctor's prescription that you need that, then we can go ahead and apply for Veterans Aid and Attendance pension benefits. I'm oversimplifying, of course. There's a lot of other hoops to go through, but that's what we do. That's our job. That's the legal aspect of our planning. But again, we're more holistic because we're taking a look at the entire family and we're saying, when we talk to our clients, mom and dad, over 90% of them want to remain at home, of course, and they want to live in the least restrictive environment. But that's not always going to be possible. And if people look around and they look at assisted living facilities, residential care facilities, skilled nursing facilities, so on and so forth, they're all full, which is kind of an amazing thing. When I started practicing it back in the 90s, and I was doing exclusively estate planning at the time, everything was tax-based. We had a huge potential tax on people's estates, especially in California, because our real estate tends to be much larger than the rest of the country. So we were focused on complicated tax-structured planning. Fast forward 20 years, over the last 10 or 15 years, of course, we have this blessing. The science is getting better, medicine is getting better, and people are living longer. But with that blessing comes all of these stressful questions. Am I going to outlive my money? Is there going to be somebody there to help take care of me? Will the government provide help? We hear these concerns every day. And that's what we do at our law firm is we address these concerns for the entire family. Whether we have a relative that lives across the street or across the country, it doesn't matter because we're there, again, quarterbacking all the different care providers, whether it's a doctor or let's say you just had Rick on. If we need care at home or some of his services, we'll talk to him. We talk to Medicare specialists, although we deal with a lot of these issues ourselves, whether it be Medicare, Social Security, Medi-Cal, Social Security disability. All the government benefits is really, you have to know them rock solid if you're an elder law attorney. That's what really is one of the distinguishing factors between us and general estate planning attorneys.
Yeah. Well, now, the other thing, too, the facilities around here are extremely expensive.
Yes.
Holy cow.
So this is quite shocking to people. If you're at home and you need a few hours of help, it's not the end of the world, $20, $25 an hour, maybe. Now, if you need an elevated level at home where you need more care, it's of course going to become untenable because it's going to be incredibly expensive. Now, if you're in this middle level, we call it the long-term care spectrum. You start at home, you kind of advance along this long-term care spectrum, which might mean independent living, assisted living, etc. And the cost around here tends to be between around $3,000 and $6,000 a month. And Then if we're on the other end of skilled nursing care, the state average is over $8,000 a month. In LA County, we're more like $10,000 a month. And to kind of blow your mind, I had a client last year who suffered a brain injury at 68. Unbelievable. Him and his wife were about to retire, and he needed acute care. And he was completely, and still is completely with it, but his cost of care is $1,130 a day. So we're talking around $35,000 a month, and we calculated out that in 4 to 5 years, his wife would be left bankrupt, having to pay for this care. So long story short, it took us about a year, but we had to jump through a lot of hoops with Medi-Cal, and we got them to retroactively pay for every single penny. So she didn't have to go bankrupt. He's getting the great care that he needs. And if this is the reason that you really want to talk to an elder law attorney. And one of the bane, I think, of elder law attorneys is that most people don't even know what elder law is. Even other estate planning attorneys. I oftentimes get estate planning attorneys pulling me to the side and saying, I don't really want to admit this out loud, but what is it that you guys do again? And I sum up the question with a question. I think it's the best way to understand it. When we're talking about estate planning, we're addressing a small sliver of what everybody needs, which is addressing the question of what happens if I die? What happens if I become incapacitated? Well, a living trust and powers of attorney, they're going to address and answer those questions for you and your loved ones. However, when we're talking about elder law, in addition to those questions, we're asking, what happens if I live? How am I going to pay for care? What kind of care am I going to get? How am I going to live in the best possible manner, in the way that I want for the rest of my life? And if you don't speak with an elder law attorney, and really, I believe a life care planning attorney, you're not going to get those questions adequately addressed.
And our seniors who are listening right now, a lot of them are living in fear.
Yes.
Because they're looking at trying to define the federal Medicare system and the state Medi-Cal system. They're not getting it. It's way too complicated for them.
Yes.
How do we work our way and rehash or unhash the problems that we're seeing with government and the complications that they're setting in front of us, those hoops?
Your question raises a really important point that I don't think has been recognized by the American people at large yet, which is that we know that 10,000 people a day are turning 65, and that's been going on for about 10 years now. We have another 10 years of this going to happen. And the focus, although there is a lot of focus on seniors, there hasn't been a focus on coordinating the care from being healthy to along this long-term care spectrum. And what I see every day is that it's harder and harder to place people in an elevated level of care, whether it be assisted living or skilled nursing facilities, simply because there's no beds available, which is mind-boggling. I have clients having to go into different counties trying to find locations to live in, possibly in the future. They have to get on waiting lists for sometimes years to get into the facilities that they want to get into. And I think this is something that Congress is going to need to address, especially in the coming years, as more and more people age, and the population keeps getting a little bit older every single year.
We're living older.
But they don't want to address it. You know why?
It's expensive.
No. Well, yeah, it's expensive. But the other side of the coin is that Congress has their own plan of how they're going to live on their own when it's time for them to retire and get old. They don't have to worry about what the general population has to worry about. They don't have to jump through the hoops that the rest of us do. And ultimately, there are waiting lists for these people, for our patients. But you know something? The best place for them to go is to stay in their home.
Absolutely correct. And I have this conversation with my clients all the time because people a lot of times don't believe that even if they need a higher level of care, that they can't remain at home. And my answer to most people is, actually, if you think about it, you can. My key question that I ask people a lot is I say, who's the most famous person you know who had full-blown Alzheimer's, who never left his home and stayed there for the rest of his life? Do you know the answer?
No.
Who's your
Ronald
guess?
Reagan.
Ronald Reagan, exactly.
Ronald Reagan, that's
and a lot
right.
of people
He
think
did.
that it's because that he was the ex-president, that he had all this care available to him. And that's not actually true. It's true that his wife, Nancy, was the reason that he was able to stay at home. She was his primary caregiver. She was his advocate. And you need an advocate today in the system that is fragmented in order for to take care of you.
But we need you're right. We need an advocate, but we just, it's mind-boggling that the leadership, whether it be in medicine or law or whatever it is, that it's not achieving what it's supposed to achieve because there's no advocacy. And how we are going to get those people out there in the forefront, I still don't know yet.
Well,
the public needs to be upset with the situation, the present situation, but they're not.
I'll give you a little insight here. Since I'm the current president of the National Academy of Elder Law Attorneys for the Southern California chapter, we just had a conference between all the presidents in the United States of NALA, and we are putting together more advocacy groups in Washington to help lobby and to create the laws that are needed for these purposes and these needs of seniors that you're talking about.
That's incredible. That really is. And I think it's very necessary. It's very needed.
Oh, absolutely.
It really
is. It absolutely is. So while this is now just coming to the forefront, you can mark my words, in another 10 years from now, everybody will know what elder care law is. Everybody will understand that these are very important issues that need to be addressed, and hopefully addressed in advance, not in an emergency situation. You don't want to be reactive in these situations, which is oftentimes the case because either people didn't know that they could do this planning, or they did and they just kind of ignored it, or they thought they had an estate plan and they thought they were covered because they had an estate plan and Medicare and Social Security. But that is not true. We're just talking about the bare minimum. We're not talking about long-term care whatsoever.
So when we come back from our break, let's talk about your ideas of how we might be able to simplify the system, get rid of some of the loopholes, and allow our senior patients to stay in their home.
Sounds great.
I'm Dr. Gene Dorio with my co-host Barbara Cochran on your hometown station AM 1220 KHTS.
Welcome back to the Senior Hour. We're speaking with Randall Kaiden, who is an elder law attorney. And boy, we've covered a lot of area.
Yep.
But
yes.
Gene, you had some specifics.
Well, I think
finish up.
I think we were talking a little bit about simplifying this whole system and trying to figure out, how our seniors can avoid the hoops that are out there. But I think one of it is what you've already alluded to is, the costs and managing the costs beforehand.
Yeah, well, one of the most important thing is that you need to plan in advance. And if you plan in advance, then you can live in the least restrictive environment. You can do things that you want. As far as reforming the system, that's a larger question, which is going to take years to resolve. But right now, everybody's living in the here and now, and so they have to address these questions. And, people sometimes ask me, they say, well, how am I going to pay for this care? And it's really important to understand that there is actually only 4 possible ways to pay for long-term care. The first one is obvious. It's out of your own pocket. Mm-hmm. Second way is with long-term care insurance. If you were lucky enough to get it and smart enough to buy it, and you got a good enough policy, then long-term care insurance has been a blessing for a lot of people. But if you don't have a long-term care insurance policy, and if you don't have enough money, or if you run out of money, then you're relying on the government. And then you really only have 2 other possibilities. One is the VA pension benefits. The biggest one is the aid and attendance pension benefit. And beyond that, when we need an elevated level of care and skilled nursing, we can get Medi-Cal. And by the way, most people are unaware, once you're in a skilled nursing facility, the government finally got smart about 10 years ago, and they said, let's enact what's called 1915C waiver programs. And we have 8 of them in the state of California. But we have a huge waiting list. It's almost impossible to get it. But if you're in skilled nursing, then you're able to go ahead and get kicked up to the top of the waiting list, because the government recognized that it's going to cost a lot less to put people back in their home, people who can be safely back in their home, and for Medi-Cal to pay for their care at home than it is in a skilled nursing facility. So again, this all falls under the umbrella of elder law, and why you really need great advocacy and to understand the rules and the possibilities and things specific to your condition and your circumstances, and how you can get the best possible care for the rest of your life.
Yeah, we haven't even touched yet on all the possibilities that are out there, and we need you back on the show in the future, I hope.
Yes.
But if you can give us information on how to contact you, that would be great.
Yeah, so you could either go to my website, which is Kaiden, Kaiden, elderlaw.com, or you can just simply call us. Our telephone number is 661-247-8433.
Well, I'll tell you, that's a lot of information that's still out there, and it's a lot of information we need, because there are just so many hoops to jump through in all of this, and they really and truly, like government does, like to make things too complicated for all of us. And probably, that we pay our taxes, but they want to hold on to our monies then in terms of dispersing it, to give it back to us when we really need it. So that's a big problem in itself that I hope the next time when you come on, we can talk about it.
Yeah, and the final message I'd like to leave with people is that there is help out there. We do help people every day. We do help them get the care that they want and need. And it is today just a matter of having fantastic planning in place. If you don't have good planning in place, you're not going to get the care that you need and want.
Randall Kaiden, appreciate your being on the show today. Thanks a lot.
Thanks for having me.
Need to have you back. We are sponsored by Advanced Audiology and Comfort Keepers in Home Care. Listen to us next week on the Senior Hour. Now go and enhance your quality of life.
Trinity Classical Academy, Santa Clarita's classical Christian college preparatory school, offers an excellent education in grades TK through 12th grade. Outstanding academics, vibrant fine arts, and championship athletics are all part of the Trinity experience. Discover why Trinity students...